What's good, guys? It's your boy Beats by Ash coming at you with another banger of video, and today I've got for you guys a match video that I recorded at my local game store, and I recently went 3-0 with Red Green Law. In this match, you'll see me go up against a Kaido player, and I'm super excited to bring you guys more Law content in the future, as this deck is super complex, super fun, and there's just a lot of things that I can really only explain in hands-on gameplay like this. So if you're interested in that, I've got a couple other matches, as well as a deck profile that I could upload if you guys want. Make sure to let me know down in the comments, as well as leaving a like on this one. We recently just hit 200 subscribers. I really appreciate that. As well, if you're interested in coaching, make sure to message me on Discord. Link will be in the description. And as always, let's get into the goo. Alright guys, so our opponent goes ahead and decides to go first here. Since he's Kaido, he doesn't really have a turn one play as expected. I'm going to go ahead and briefly tell you the mulligan strategy. Look for a searcher. 9 out of 10 times, if you don't have a searcher, you're going to mulligan for one. Because the reason to play this deck is that Bonnie and Nami are some of the best cards in the game. So here, I go ahead and start off by playing Bonnie plus Chopper. I would like to point out that you don't want to play a turn one searcher against every matchup, because there are a lot of answers in the meta to rest your searcher on turn one and then you just neg. Against Kaido, it's very fine to do because the only thing they could have is a Who's Who, which is not commonly played, so this is a great start for us. Our opponent goes ahead and attacks us with their leader for 6k. A lot of people are going to think it's strange that I decided to discard the Brook here. Our opponent goes ahead and throws down the blocker and passes to us. The reason I discarded Brook here is because I'm fine with discarding one now when I have a searcher already on board. Taking the card in the damage zone doesn't really benefit us as much as later on when they put a large attacker on board and we can't even use multiple cards to block it. If you don't have a searcher, 100% take the damage here because you need to access engine. Usually with your Bonnie, you are looking for your Law because the other pieces of the combo can be added off of Nami, whereas with Bonnie, she's the only one who can access Law, and Law is pretty much one of the best cards in the game right now, if not the most pushed card stat-wise. So here I'm offered a Jet Pistol as well as a Bonnie. I'm going to go ahead and take the Bonnie here. Typically, if you're playing Momo as well, or even just in Kid, taking another copy of the Searcher is completely fine. It just gives you another card to put on board, a little bit better in our deck than Kid, just because we benefit from putting 5 on board. So I go ahead and attack with my leader. Number one, always attack with your leader first if you're going to attack with a character. Just see what cards they use. I go ahead and put the Azoro on board so we can apply some more early pressure, and he uses up the blocker, which is great for us because now we have a Chopper to protect our Zoro, and he removed his blocker, which could have been used to attack our Bonnie. And since we have a Bonnie in hand, we don't even care if he attacks this Bonnie. That's one of the best things about adding a searcher off a searcher. I go ahead and use my Chopper to protect the Zoro because in this matchup, you want to apply pressure as much as possible without using up resources before turn 7 and turn 10, so they can't just remove your guys and they just win the board and you get into the late game with them. So by protecting that Zoro, we've got an additional attack, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Bonnie once again, just to see if that changes our sequence for the turn. My opponent reminds me I forgot to tap it on. My bad. I'm kind of looking for a Law here, and I get just that. So this is amazing for us because now we can play the Law to bounce back our Bonnie or our Zoro, and that's really important to note because a lot of people would just try to fill up the board here, but because we're approaching turn 7, our opponent could throw down a 7-cost king or a 6-cost king, which could remove both our Zoro and Bonnie or even one. So by playing the Law here, I'm able to go ahead and bounce back the Zoro to hand. And regardless of whether you replay the Zoro, you could replace it to play a Nami, you could play a blocker, whatever you want. I decided to specifically attack with the Zoro again because I have more resources in hand and I have a second Bonnie, so I don't care what leaves the field. But my point is that by putting the Law on board on this turn, regardless of what removal he has, I have a guaranteed attacker next turn. And let's say he only has 6 cost king here and he kills one of our guys, potentially we use our law to block his leader on one of those attacks, and then it gives us a requirement of a less counter in hand to protect it. Our opponent finally gets access to the island, which is fine. It's a little bit too late for him, but honestly, even if he had it, we're trying to play around the 7 and 10 cost cards in his deck as much as possible. So you should be in a good position versus this matchup unless they mega high roll, honestly. I decided to go ahead and discard 2 because he attacked my Zoro. Like I said, I value the additional attacker very highly. Now we're going back into my turn, and I can potentially attack 3 total times, once with leader, once with each of my characters on board. Okay, and let's go ahead and put some respect on your boy for that nice fan out of the dawn. Anybody see that? W in the chat if you've seen that. So first thing I'm thinking here, tap our bunny. Tapping our bunny could get us an additional card, which fills out our board so we can use our leader ability this turn. If you're able to use your leader ability and you have something worthwhile to cheat out, like a mana efficient cheat, 9 out of 10 times that's going to be one of your 5 costs, either your Law or your Luffy, then you usually want to do so. But regardless, getting us a Zoro is completely fine as well, because it's another resource that at worst we can hold on to after he clears the board. We're going to go ahead and start off by attacking with our leader first, just to see what he has available to him. He has a lot of cards in hand right now. I know you guys can't see that, but we're going to get rid of him, some of them very soon. Go ahead and attack with our Zoro. He discards a 2K. Very important, remember how many 2Ks your opponent has discarded, because it's going to help you calculate if you have lethal on some turns. So usually if I'm not sure if I want to go for lethal, I like to pick up my opponent's trash and just see what counters they've used. And if you know the deck very well, you can make a pretty good assumption. I'm going to go ahead and tap down 3, throw down another Zoro here, and that gets met with another 2K. Very important to note. I go ahead and ask him, you know, how many cards he has in hand. I believe he said 4 at this time. I still have the second Bonnie in hand, which if you look at how much Dawn I have, I counted out how much all of my plays would cost in this turn before I played anything. That way, I didn't have to take time in between each decision and look back and say, hey, I messed up this one. So always make sure to count those out and think about how much Dawn you're going to have next turn and how many characters you have on that turn as well. So we go ahead and put down our Bonnie here, and we're going to go ahead and search, see if anything we hit changes what we use our leader ability on, and we are the high roll god. We get a second copy of Law, which if you're new to the deck, having 2 Law at one time feels almost unbeatable. So we have 2 left for our leader ability, which means if we play our Law from hand, regardless of if he nukes the field, we're guaranteed to recycle 2 cards here. So I go ahead and do that. I think I decide to go ahead and bounce back my Bonnie to hand so we can have I guess I bounce back my Zoro here so that we can have that after he plays 10 cost Kaido. And then I go ahead and use the effect of Law, bouncing back the other Zoro. And then we'll go ahead and replay that Zoro. We'll attack again, which is putting on some more pressure. My reasoning behind that was just he's used a lot of 2Ks, so I didn't think he would have another one. But worst case scenario, we do have another Zoro in hand, and I believe a Luffy. I was just telling my opponent, I'm ready. I'm ready for the 10 cost, so I go ahead and wipe up the cards before he even plays it. He's like, yeah, go ahead and do that. He decides to go ahead and -5 there since he has the island. That's why it may look a little bit weird on camera. He's going to attack us with our leader. Since we didn't take the damage early on, we don't really care about life at this point. It's pretty much invalidated, so we can just take whatever. Don't necessarily need the card, but it doesn't really stop us from doing anything. So here, I don't believe we are going to be able to put 5 characters on board currently with our hand, nor do we necessarily want to, because we just lost 2 Law, as that is one of the best things to cheat out. So my first thought here was, how many cards can I attack with for 7K? So I put 2 on my leader for that reason. We're at maxed on, and we have 2 Zoro in hand. I go ahead and tap 3 out to play another Zoro. and I can make that Zoro 7k as well. And if I want to, I can also play this third Zoro. So I'm hitting for 7 twice, and I'm hitting for 5 one time, which means the first 2 attacks, he will have to use minimum 2 cards to block them, which is very important because we have a Luffy in hand, which means if he didn't block that and he's at 0, on the following turn, no matter what blockers he has, we're always fine to just throw all the Dawn on our 5-cost Luffy. I think that comes out to 11, and just attack for lethal. I do want to point out this was a big misplay on my part. For some reason, I had it in my mind that he had a potential chance to go for lethal, but obviously that's not possible with the amount of Dawn that he has. I end up throwing out the Component Killer. Here, it would 100% be correct to throw out the additional Zoro because I have Luffy in hand. That would almost always guarantee that he's going to be at 0 with the amount of counters in the trash and how many cards he has. He goes ahead and swings at my Zoro. I don't really care about it at this point because we can attack with our leader. We can attack with Luffy. He's going to go ahead and attack our leader for 9 here. I go ahead and take it because there is a chance our leader ability could come online next turn, and having 2 characters is a good start to that combo. And like I thought, he did play down a blocker, so the Luffy is going to come in clutch here. And on this turn, you guys are going to see a great example of why you should always use your leader to attack first, because it can really dictate what your opponent does and change the way the game goes. So I was thinking about it, and the reason I decided not to boost my leader here is because I could potentially attack with him, then attack with Zoro, then if he didn't use his blocker on either of those and just countered out of it, we play our Luffy, we have just enough to put 2 counter on it, and it's exact lethal. But he goes ahead and takes the damage, which, like I just said, changed the game dramatically. It allowed us to play down our Luffy and use the rest of the Dawn to go for game, and that's GG. That's how we got the dub there, but even if he didn't, we did have another line where we could have 2 attacks instead of 1. It just, it really goes to show you guys what the power of sequencing your attacks does and using those as a resource. Thank you so much for reaching it this far in the video. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one. As always, if it's not the goo, it's got to go. Peace.